So then I guess like the next thing that we can kind of talk about is we briefly brought it up earlier with the idea of like COVID-19 and how this is like changing our food landscape or like our eating landscape. But I think more importantly with COVID-19, this is really showing how the food chain is like really stamped with the marks of capitalism and how like our food chain is just drastically taking a hit, um, and like showing off the way that food is really just treated if it's like refuse. It's like nothing in our world because like um, well, obviously with food, like everyone needs to eat, and a lot of people will tout that like capitalism is the most efficient way to distribute resources. To which I would agree. It's the most efficient way for milk to go from cows straight into the drain. And like this is something that's happening with like everyone being in a panic and whatnot is like no one has money, and now we're seeing this across the United States. And before we started recording, Skirt, I think you were saying something about how you're seeing this in Canada too, is like in America at least. Um, well, even we also see this in Europe, because like in America, farmers are dumping milk that's not like being sold or that would not be sold because like no one's buying, and like farmers are also smashing chicken eggs. And over in Europe, they're like piling up potatoes that are not going to market.
Yeah,
And like,
I saw that article where it was like it was in the Netherlands, right?
I think so,
Where
yeah.
like the Dutch government like begs people to eat like French fries once a day or something like that. It was something. It was wild.
Yeah, and like it, it's so interesting that this there's so much emphasis on like eating in our lives and whatnot, yet we are just so willingly just letting all this food go into the trash. And one thing that I kind of noticed is that our supply chain is not set up for this because capitalism is made to maximize profits, but it's the time frame that it's not built for the now, it's built for like next quarter. How do we maximize next quarter? So like all this extra food, we kind of couldn't have avoided it, I would
What's
think.
the myth of perpetual growth, right?
Yeah.
You're always chasing the next quarterly or earnings per share increase, right?
Yeah.
But like the thing that's weird about all the destruction of this food is just there already is a pretty crazy baseline of destruction of food.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
you look at unsold produce and meat and things like that. Yes, they can slap $3 off. Eat this tonight, please. Don't keep it in the fridge.
Mhm.
They can slap a $3 off sticker on a piece of chicken or pork and get it out the door from the supermarket. And obviously there have been again capitalist initiatives. You make a company that sells the ugly looking peaches and
Mhm.
the weird looking pears, and you save the consumer 10%, but you saved 30% on the purchase of the irregular fruit, so you're still making off like a bandit. And
Mhm.
you get people to satisfy their little moral urge to feel like they're doing something good by eating
Yeah.
the weirdo vegetables.
Yeah, that's something also is really, really profoundly interesting about like seconds, I think they're called, or I don't know. The only thing I can think about is belly flops, is what we call them for jelly belly jelly beans, is the weird looking ones. And like one thing I was going to bring up with just automatic wasting of food is bananas. There are ridiculously strict regulate or like guidelines of how long a banana needs to be, the color it needs to be when it's picked, and the shape that it needs to be when it's picked in order to go to market. And if it doesn't meet those strict requirements, it gets pitched. Like if it's 2 centimeters longer or shorter, it goes into the trash. You
Hmm.
know, into
That's
waste.
brutal. You'd be making banana wine with that.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would taste like. Well, I
Pretty
hate
good.
bananas, but that would be
Um,
pretty cool.
It's pretty good.
If I come across it, I'll give it a try just for you. All right.
You probably have to make it yourself, I think.
Oh,
do
well, fuck that.
'Cause if I
This whole podcast is about learning new skills and talking about labor. And
I
how
would
to
love to do some of
make your own
my
thing.
wine making, and doing it with bananas would be fun. I wanted to make my own mead, but honey is a bit expensive. But
I had a friend that made mead many years ago, and it did not turn out well. Mostly because he was young and didn't know what the hell he was doing, but also just because he was stupid and didn't know what he was doing. But I do have stuff to make wine. I'm sure it wouldn't be too hard to convince the people around here. Hey, you guys want to try to make banana wine?
Well, I mean, was it Fanta? Was Fanta from was a way of avoiding throwing out vegetables and fruits in Germany?
You might be right.
I'm not quite sure. I think it was something like that, though. It
Probably.
saved a bunch of food that wasn't going to be used, so I made it into pop.
that sounds familiar. Yeah.
But
I'll forgive you for calling it pop.
Oh,
but
I think Sunkist also was another one that was similar to that. They had an overproduction of oranges, so they started turning it into pop.
Damn, that's crazy.
yeah, it's almost like there are certainly things that we can do with all of this soon to be wasted food or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I guess this also something that we had down in the notes is like different statistics on food waste, and like the United States Department of Agriculture estimates that 30 to 40% of the food that we make is wasted. And like, yeah, some of that is avoidable, or some of it's unavoidable, like, oh, this banana looks weird or whatever, but a lot of it is avoidable. And like, part of the reason that we do throw out these things, like all this food, you might, just to the uneducated person, might think, oh, that's crazy, that's irrational, why would you do that? But the system has its own insane logic behind it. And like, that's one thing that I've been telling people is, in this crisis, yeah, we're throwing out all of this milk and all these eggs, but you have to, because otherwise my precious free market would like kind of collapse, because that's the whole reason that they're throwing out milk and eggs, is to maintain prices.
Yeah, because they have to counter a demand collapse. Yeah. Well, but the thing is, like, that just lays bare the fact that our consumption rates aren't as high as we think they are to begin with. I mean, whether we factor in things like restaurants or not, because obviously restaurant demand is very, very much cratered, and domestic demand has gone down, of course. Plus, workers are hard to get now because of a whole bunch of reasons. It turns out that you can't get an American-born white person to pick apples unless they're trying to get college money.
Yeah.
Like, those people don't, like, picking apple pickers and tomato pickers and fruit and vegetable pickers don't get paid enough already. And
yeah,
the politics and the racial politics around that really gets highlighted, and so I think our production is going to go down, particularly in the States, because all those companies are so used to exploiting migrant labor, right?
Yeah.
And Great Britain, I think, was having an issue too. They wanted to relax restrictions. I believe they employ folks from Poland, and there was issues going on there as far as, what we need people to pick our apples, but British people won't do it. So
I think I heard about that.
To fly some Polish workers in temporarily for harvest season. Yeah, do you remember that?
I remember hearing something about it, and I think it was a lot more racially charged.
Oh yeah,
it had to do with like keep all the Muslims out. And it's like, dude, they're coming here to harvest food. Shut up. There's some dumb shit.
Yeah, European governments scramble to find farm workers for harvest. British workers reject fruit picking jobs, and Romanians are flown instead.
That's what it was.
There you go. And yeah, definitely there's a lot of racism there as well.
Yeah, and that feeds perfectly into like a lot of reactionaries here in the States will always be like, those Mexicans came and took our gerbs, and it's like, yeah, do you want to go and pick food for like $3 an hour out in the fields? Yeah, I didn't fucking think so. They're not taking your jobs. They're like, these jobs exist, and yeah, it's not good that these people are exploited the way that they do, but like these people fit a specific role. But like, yeah, do you want to go pick Beats White Boy for $2 an hour? I
Hmm.
didn't think so.
Yeah, something tells me
That's
that's a
precisely it.
a job that they would view as being a temporary thing that you gotta, you go through that when you're young, and then you get your degree and you move on. No, but
Yeah,
Degree, more like you just a lot of these the boomer set would just be like, yeah, you're in 11th grade and you go knock on a door, and then 10 years later you're in upper management.
yeah,
yeah. And I think it's really interesting that we just said that like these are viewed as an entry level position and like the lowest ladder on the rung, and that's one thing that really works against these super exploited migrant workers, is that like there's no drive to address the problem, because a lot of these like middle class affluent white people see this as a job that is below even them, so like why should we bother fixing it? And we need to realize that these people are getting screwed over, and it is certainly not an entry level position. These people producing food are making sure that you have something to eat, which is like reminds me of a joke, like when your parents or someone next asks you to thank Jesus, he'll probably respond de nada or some dumb shit like that. I don't
Boo.
know. But and so like I don't know what much more to say about this, is that we don't treat food like it is something super important if we're wasting 30 to 40% of it. And I think that's something that we definitely need to change our outlook on, because it's a super important thing to us.
I was just thinking about the fact that there have been some empty shelves up here from time to time, but I've talked to people about this before, and just the whole concept of the fact that we're trained from a young age to expect everything, every single shelf to be well stocked. You got to have your little beautiful pyramid of oranges, and as soon as a couple get picked or taken off the pyramid, someone will restock them to make them look nice again. And we're so indoctrinated by plenty,
Hmm.
and just seeing it now, like you see a shelf that's empty where there's no buns or something like that, and then people start losing their minds, and of course the first crack they make is, haha, it's a preview of communism. And it's like, well, actually,
yeah, yeah.
the
That
forces
was
that brought you here are capitalism, my friend.
This thing that I don't like is communism.
Yep.
Haha.
So yeah, we have to get used to. There's nothing wrong with you going to the store and maybe apples are on your list, and one day they're not there,
Hmm.
and then they show up the next day.
Yeah.
Like there's no shame, but there's no shame in for a grocer to run out of something. If they're out, they're out.
Hmm.
But we've just been completely just sold this bill of goods of, there has to be an everything has to be there all the time.
Hmm. And I think that really is a product of our globalization and the exploitation of like the global south and these or these environments that are better for growing certain foods, is this idea that everything is going to be available year round. But
Mhm.
yeah,
as we're seeing now, like it's not exactly the case. Like tiny little fractures in the system are enough to make sure that a shelf at a grocery store could be empty for a couple days.
I lost my mind when I didn't have garlic for 3 weeks. I got the jarred stuff, but at the same time, it's like I went to the store. It was before the real major reduction in amount of people you can have in a building, and the fullest extent of the distancing rules. But yeah, so I went in there, didn't have a mask, everyone's business as usual, and I'm like, "Ooh, there's no garlic." Ask one of the guys who's working there, "Hey, when is garlic going to be back?" "Oh, we don't know." So that was a disruption in the service, and after 3 weeks, I was like, I need fresh garlic. This is starting to get ridiculous. So even I'm not immune for sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I realize I'm not immune too, because even going back like just 30, 40 years ago, there were a lot of foods that you just couldn't get at a certain time of year. And
Mhm.
I think that is less noticeable nowadays. I mean, like you go to the grocery store, there's always oranges there. There's always like, every type of food. And I think people have just grown to accept that. So they, and take that as the norm and never have thought about it being different. And I think a lot of that goes to like that being the norm with, a lot of other products that aren't perishable, like electronics and stuff like that. That can be made regardless of the time. And then I think grocery stores trying to emulate that type of feeling because they just want people to come there. But it is definitely a result of exploitation of the global south, of all sorts of stuff. And, well, I guess different farming practices too. But
Yeah, there's a whole big mess to talk about with shitty farming practices throughout the food chain.
And I was going to rant about Norman Borlaug.
Who is Norman Borlaug?
Quick aside, he was a plant breeder, and he revolutionized agriculture and ended up lifting millions and millions of people out of poverty in Mexico and India and Pakistan. He was one of the guys who pioneered a dwarf wheat, which allowed more intensive fertilization. So you get hit with way more fertilizer, and that spike of nitrogen, I think, usually makes the plant grow too spindly, and then it falls over. But when he got these dwarf varieties, they've got a much thicker, hardier stem, so you can really blast them with nitrogen, and they won't get super tall and collapse. So he ended up just massively increasing the amount of food available, and the production went up a lot. But he's also on the other side of the coin. He's kind of one of the biggest enablers of the large multinational company just devouring all of the agricultural output of parts of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's good, but he's also not good.
Yeah. A land of contrasts, much like all of us.